In a large-scale fitness center in Gangnam, Seoul, there was a small office space for employees. There, Choi Kang-hyuk is live on his channel. He reveals how he plans to create a mukbang featuring honey chicken and beer, a trend that has been gaining popularity recently. He eats it then and tells his followers how delicious it is. I am sure you can tell from his muscles, but Choi Kang-hyuk was obsessed with working out. He was not a gym rat from birth, of course. There is a reason why he became like this. It was because he had once been so injured that it would have been hard for him to walk if his muscles did not work. He was severely injured while on a special forces mission. He began taking physical therapy and going to a chiropractor to recover. After that, he began taking on more forms of exercise, such as yoga, Pilates, and anything that he heard was good for you. He even studies nutrition to improve his diet. One day, he had become the nation's best gym rat, the nation's best fitness trainer. You might wonder why he might stream a mukbang while worrying about losing his muscles in the corner of this fitness center. He tearfully thanks COVID for this blessing, as it is because of the pandemic disaster that had hit the entire world. In order to keep up with the maintenance of the gyms, Choi Kang-hyuk had no choice but to become a streamer. However, the profits were nowhere near enough to upkeep 5 gym locations. As he ends the stream, he wonders how things got like this. He decides to rest now like the doctor said. The doctor had told him he was losing hair due to stress. That hit Kang-hyuk deeply. The doctor said he must not have noticed it as he is so healthy, but his body is already on the brink of breakdown because of all the stress. He suggested Kang-hyuk cut down on his work or he would become bald. Kang-hyuk truly did not want that to happen. He could imagine what would happen if he became bald. He would forever be alone. The doctor prescribed medicine to him, but suggested he decrease his stress and rest. But Kang-hyuk was having trouble knowing how to do that. He has always worked and exercised. He then suddenly realizes something and picks up his phone. He had forgotten all about it because of his busy lifestyle, but he used to love reading Murim novels when he was a child. For Choi Kang-hyuk, who had grown up poor, his grandparents borrowing Murim novels from the corner bookstore was a fond memory for him. He remembers how his grandpa used to lecture him about going there so often. He finally found a familiar author named Gaeyong on an online site. Seeing familiar names like Absolute Demon's Return and Unorthodox Faction's Tyranny, Kang-hyuk recalls how he used to love these as a kid. He finds the author's new series he had not read or heard of before. It was called Shaolin Monk Chronicles. In the novel, the protagonist, Mu Jin, who just entered the Shaolin Temple, will pave a new path as a martial artist. He decides to check it out. His interest is piqued instantly, and he finds the novel really good. As he enjoys the novel, he feels relaxed and wonders when the last time he felt like this. It feels like he is back in his childhood days. After binge reading the novel the whole night, Kang-hyuk started feeling sleepy and eventually dozed off. Unknown to him, the phone screen starts glowing brightly. When Kang-hyuk wakes up the next morning, he hears a voice waking him up. The voice suggests that they are getting late for their morning workout, instantly energizing Kang-hyuk. But he gets confused as he sees it was a kid who was pleading with Kang-hyuk to hurry up as everyone else had already left. Kang-hyuk was beyond confused. He asks the bald kid how he got into his house. The kid was confused and asked who he was calling kid. He says he is bigger and older than him. Kang-hyuk stands up. Of course, he did not believe the kid and asked if his eyes hurt. Plus, he could not get how he even entered his house. He looks around and realizes this clearly is not his house. He then places his hand on his head, feeling no hair. He yells in fright and asks where he is. He then remembers how the kid called him Mu Jin. The name sounds quite familiar to Kang-hyuk. It is the name of the main character from the novel he was just reading. Things made no sense to Kang-hyuk. He wonders why Mu Jin is and where he is. He panics further as he sees his body and muscles are no more. He sighs in relief, reminding himself this is all just a dream. He remembers having many dreams like this back when he read a lot of novels. As the kid suggests they will be late, Kang-hyuk plays along and agrees. After calming down, Kang-hyuk thinks of the kid as adorable. He thinks that since this is just a dream, he will enjoy the situation. But he soon regrets his decision as they make their way to the training session. They were scolded for coming late to the first schedule of that day. The dream felt too real for Kang Hyuk. The instructor announces that they are going to start with a horse stance first. Kang Hyuk wonders what this horse's stance is, whether he is talking about squatting. He watched the others get into position and was shocked at the absurdity of their training. He knew they were all going to wreck their knees if they did it like that. As Kang Hyuk went through rehabilitation training, he started to do proper exercises. He knew just how important lower body and core exercises were more than anyone else's. There were times when he saw trainers who taught the wrong exercises and focused solely on upper body exercises. They are missing out on the core of exercise. That is what he thought. And now here is this ridiculous exercise unfolding before him. The problem was that their legs were too far apart. They need to straighten their backs and naturally lean forward. It is a situation that a true gym goer like Kang Hyuk cannot tolerate. He hears the instructor tell them all how the lower body is the foundation of martial arts. But he could not understand why he would ask them to do this for someone who knows that very well. The instructor keeps going on, saying if they are not able to use their lower body to maintain their balance, they will not be able to exert their strength properly in any punching or staff techniques. Kang Hyuk is beyond bewildered. He wonders what the instructor is even trying to say to these kids who do not have the right posture. Fortunately, or unfortunately, Kang Hyuk is not the kind of man to just allow others to exercise with the wrong posture, even if that means it is only happening within a dream. And so, in a fit of rage, Kang Hyuk calls them out for being ignorant rascals who do not know a single thing about exercising. All eyes turned towards Kang Hyuk, some shocked by his rebellion while others were enraged. The instructor angrily approaches Kang Hyuk and asks how dare he shout nonsense in the middle of a training session. Others call him out for making up excuses just because the training is tough. They ordered him to get into position right now. Kang Hyuk was a bit taken aback. He wonders if it is because this is a martial arts novel that he can sense energy from their shouts. Even so, he knows he needs to say what needs to be said. Not backing down, Kang Hyuk says he simply pointed out that something was wrong. He is determined not to back down from mere intimidation like this. It was way easier for him as compared to dealing with a horrible gym member. The instructor reminds him that he is a Shaolin disciple and asks if he is asserting the training of Shaolin is wrong. His words make Kang Hyuk excited, as the dream seems too realistic now. He decides to play along and speak like a martial artist would. Kang Hyuk replies in affirmation. He suggests that if they keep training with this current method, they will injure their knees and suffer greatly in their later years. The instructor furiously says that it is just an excuse made by those who are weak. Kang Hyuk points out that martial arts are for the weak to train their bodies and minds. But the instructor is saying this is not something that we can learn, calling it a contradictory statement. Before the instructor can come up with a suitable reply, another one approaches them. He states that the way Shaolin trains is different from what Kang Hyuk has mentioned. They train in martial arts so that they can improve themselves and achieve enlightenment. Kang Hyuk scoffs amusingly. He asks if the instructor is saying that Shaolin is a place where the weak cannot achieve enlightenment. The instructor clarifies that it is not what he means. He explains that they train their bodies in a harsh manner so that they can train their minds. He elaborates that the mind of a human is weak, they seek comfort in times of difficulty, and evil thoughts invade their minds easily. Hence, they train their minds in advance so that they can endure and make it through such times. Kang Hyuk mutters how training their mind is only needed when they are young. The instructor asks what nonsense he is suddenly spouting. Kang Hyuk points out how the instructor said that to train their minds, it is okay to damage their knees when they are young. After they grow old with a damaged body, they will not need to go through tough times like that. He asks if it means they will achieve enlightenment if they suffer a little while they are young. Whispers filled the air while the instructor grew more tense. Kang Hyuk points to a monk and wonders aloud how much he has gone through for him to still be unable to achieve enlightenment at such an old age. Everyone turns speechless at his bold words. The instructor couldn't believe a young brat dared to say that to the first-class disciple Hai Yung. As expected, Hai Yung was furious. Kang Hyuk turns nervous. The first-class disciple approaches Kang Hyuk, saying he has heard everything. Ha-young says that he agrees with the second-class disciples and that the martial arts of a Buddhist group are usually used to train oneself. That means it is just a tool to reach enlightenment. However, he points out that their martial arts are different. Upon asking what is different, Ha-young replies that their martial arts are used to rescue the masses. They use it to protect them from evil and demons that harass them. Kang Hyuk scoffs and asks if he is saying they are doing training that will damage their knees so that they can protect the masses. Ha-young stares at the kid hard. Hae-jun knew if they left him be, there was a chance he would bring about a bad influence on those around him. But he is also aware that the grown-ups of a Buddhist group cannot punish a new and young monk personally. In that case, he decides to use another method. He tells Kang Hyuk to prove if he truly thinks the training methods of Shaolin are wrong. He asks the first-class disciple how he would like him to prove it. Hae-jun guesses that since their training is wrong, that means he knows the correct way to train. He asks Kang Hyuk to try to win against those who have learned by the Shaolin training method if he is right. Kang Hyuk turns nervous and asks who he will be up against. Hae-jun says it will only be fair if he fights against someone who joined them at the same time as him. He then asks Mu-gung to step forth. Hae-jun says he will give him 7 days starting today. After Kang Hyuk trains himself in the methods he considers to be correct, he will spar with Mu-gung. Kang Hyuk here could tell Mu-gung was obviously of a different weight class from him. Hae-jun was clearly not focusing on fair terms. The first-class disciple just wants to keep him pinned down while leaving him no room to complain or talk back by using someone who joined at the same time. What a horrible senior he was. Hae-jun was pleased with the situation he had manipulated, certain that the kid would not be able to say anything more. To his surprise, the kid agreed to the deal. Kang Hyuk was confident in winning against the other kids. Hae-jun then leaves, telling others to continue with their training. Mu-yul suggests Kang Hyuk go and apologize to the monk, but he soon gets back into training when told to. Kang Hyuk, or rather Mu-jin, starts training in his own preferred way, as he does squats. He remembers being scolded by the instructor for doing different exercises. Mu-jin told him he got permission from monk Hae-jun. As he does squats, he tells the others how their knees will be goners if they keep doing that. He continues making criticizing remarks, while the others try hard to ignore him. Mu-jin, who had trained for about 2 hours since early morning, was ready to get the nutrition he needed. Little did he know about the huge impending problem he would soon face. He stares at the meal of Buddhists before him, consisting of only vegetables. He realizes they are vegetarians. While being a vegetarian is natural in a temple, Mu-jin was taken aback because he had not thought of it. All he wanted was his usual protein. He furrows his brows as a sudden realization clicks through his brain. Why on earth can he smell the food when he is dreaming? Plus, it smelled pretty good even though there was nothing but vegetables on the plate. Unable to control his emotions, he yells about how this is child abuse. He complains that they spent all morning training yet are only being given vegetables. The instructors become angry and tell him to stop being disrespectful. One of them decides to teach Mu-jin a lesson. Mu-jin wonders why he is the one getting angry after giving them such a bad meal. He knew he could not let go of this matter that easily. It is valid to need protein if they exercise that much. He surely cannot let his morning exercise go to waste. Just then, Mu-jin hears someone laughing behind him. The instructors were also surprised to see the man, referring to him as hall leader Hyun-mun. Hyun-mun is the food hall leader who takes care of meals in Shaolin. He points out that Mu-jin seems very hungry. He asks Mu-jin to just get more if the food is not enough for him. Mu-jin denies it, saying there is enough food. Hyun-mun asks if he wants more of the side dish. He comprehended Mu-jin's compulsion as the grumbling of a hungry child. He decides to be generous and overlook his grumbling, but his eyes widen in shock as Mu-jin demands chicken breasts as a protein supplement. Even the other monks' mouths open in astonishment. They wondered what kind of crazy nonsense Mu-jin was talking about. Mu-jin's fellow asks if something is wrong with his head as he has been acting strangely since earlier. Mu-jin asserts that they need to eat protein, but he hesitates to speak up, knowing something is strange. When he exercised, he got tired. On top of that, he can even smell the food in this dream. If this were a dream, he would have woken up by now. He wonders if this is real. He figures he is now a young monk in the Shaolin temple who goes by the name Mu Jin. He is no longer Choi Kang Hyuk. He instantly apologizes for acting weird about food. Hyun Mun smiles, thinking the kid is only tired. Mu Jin requests some beans and mushrooms, shocking Hyun Mun. He thinks the kid is definitely crazy. But whether this was a dream or reality, Mu Jin knew he needed protein. The scene shifts to Mu Jin getting bored in class. He cannot believe they are studying Buddhist scriptures right after breakfast and early morning training. He thinks even Buddha would be scared of this harsh schedule. For now, he wonders how to get home. A sudden thought clicks in his brain. He wonders if he can get out when the story is completed fully since he is in the novel. Looking at it from that perspective, the situation did not seem all bad to him. Since Mu Jin is the protagonist in the novel, he possesses exceptional talent. The place is Shaolin, the North Star of Mount Tai. If there is a problem, it is that he has been marked by others. The deed has already been done. He thinks that since things have come down to this, he will win in the spar and get them to acknowledge his training methods. On the other hand, Hyun Mun and Hai Jun talk about Mu Jin. Hyun Mun agrees with Hai Jun's idea of punishing the disciple. He smirks, saying he heard Mu Gung, whom Mu Jin will spar against, is the most competent disciple this year. In the Shaolin temple, they recruit hundreds of new disciples every year. Among them, some would drop out because they cannot withstand the harsh training of Shaolin. Some would only learn basic martial arts and go to an outer sect. In the end, only 10% of those who joined would remain in the main temple. That is why, in this period, the first-class disciples, or the elders, would usually not know the names of the new monks. Mu Gung was one of the rare few cases. And so, Hai Jun and Hyun Mun are certain Mu Gong would teach a good lesson to Mu Jin. The promised 7 days soon passed by. The day of the fight approached. Hai Jun tells Mu Jin and Mu Gong to get ready to spar. Earlier, Mu Yul watched Mu Jin stretch and asked what he was doing. Seeing Mu Yul's confused expression, Mu Jin explained it was a tendon extension technique. Stretching is done before the actual exercise, which prepares your muscles and tendons so your body is not shocked. Various postures and stretching methods exist to increase the flexibility of muscles and the movement of joints. Mu Jin suggests Mu Yul give it a try. As Mu Jin teaches him, he observes how quick Mu Yul is at picking things up. They soon hear commotion from the other side. Apparently, people were in awe of Mu Gong's punches. Unlike the others, Mu Jin was scared. He knew he would be in deep trouble if he got hit by that. He couldn't believe he was supposed to defeat that guy within 1 week of training. He wondered how to beat him when suddenly an idea struck his mind. Back in the present, Hai Jun observes Mu Jin. Unlike what he expected, Mu Jin was not making an excuse to escape training. Although he did not listen to their instructors, he seems to have trained in his own way. He had heard Mu Jin say he was practicing a method to subdue Mu Gung in an instant. Mu Yul had asked why he kept rubbing against the tree. Hai Jun was certain Mu Gung would be able to easily teach the boy a good lesson. Meanwhile, Mu Gung was ecstatic that monk Hai Yung was looking at him. But when he looks back at Mu Jin, he is taken aback. Mu Jun was doing some unusual stretches, infuriating Mu Gung. He was determined to show Mu Jin the results of his consecutive punches, which he had trained for 3 months. As soon as Hai Yung gave the signal to begin, Mu Jin launched forward with startling speed. Without hesitation, he surged toward Mu Gung, closing the distance between them in the blink of an eye. The sudden burst of motion caught Mu Gung off guard. He had not anticipated such an immediate and aggressive approach. Reacting instinctively, Mu Gung aimed a punch, hoping to catch Mu Jin mid-charge, but to his astonishment, Mu Jin evaded it. In a swift, controlled maneuver, Mu Jin then seized Mu Gung's leg. Despite the temptation to rely on the advanced martial techniques ingrained in him through years of training, Mu Jin understood the stakes. He knew the risks. His modern martial arts were not designed for children. A single misstep could result in acute injury or worse. He needed to restrain himself. Drawing from the most basic and harmless of his arsenal, Mu Jin chose a technique that required finesse over force, one that could safely be used even on a child without lasting harm. With careful control, he executed a low tackle, bringing Mu Gung to the ground before the latter could fully react. The sparring match had barely begun, yet in the span of a single second, it was effectively over. With ease, Mu Jin transitioned into an armbar, locking Mu Gung into submission with a technique that left no room for resistance. The instructors watching from the sidelines exchanged looks of disbelief. For all their years of overseeing Shaolin disciples, they had never imagined witnessing one fall so quickly or so completely. The expression on his face was one they had never seen before. He was utterly and unquestionably defeated. For Mu Gung, the shock was personal. He lay on the ground, grappling not only with physical restraint but with the disbelief that this could happen to him. After the second-class disciples regained their composure, they gave all sorts of ridiculous advice to Mu Gung. But even though they did not know what an armbar was, they had trained for at least 10 years in martial arts. They know just how painful that position would be to his arm. Mu Gung was groaning in pain. Mu Jin coldly tells him to surrender, or his resistance will lead to a broken arm. Mu Gung was reduced to tears, making Mu Jin concerned, and he instantly let go. He begins to help Mu Gung up while Hai Jun stares at the two. He could not believe the victor was Mu Jin. Chain punch is one of the 8 extremist fists. It utilizes the fist, the elbow, and the shoulder as the main weapons. This allows one to quickly defeat their opponent at a short range. It is known for being immensely powerful. Mu Gung has mastered the chain punch the most out of all the young monks. Even the second-class disciples were impressed by his chain punch. But this morning, his brilliant chain punch was pathetically lost without even proper resistance to some strange young monk who uses weird techniques. He cried, saying that this is unfair. Upon asking, he says that Mu Jin charged at him as soon as the spar began. Plus, he attacked him with some strange technique that was not chain punch. He yells that he can win against anyone if it is a fair fight. A bit taken aback, Mu Jin agrees with him and hypes him up. The angry instructors approached the two. They coldly say that Mu Gung is right. It is a given that one would use Shaolin's martial arts when sparring in Shaolin, but Mu Jin has broken that rule. Mu Jin stares at them in shock, wondering what kind of ridiculous ideology they have brought up. Upon asking why he did not use the chain punch, Mu Jin explains the fight would have dragged on forever. If that had happened, they would have both gotten severely injured. Therefore, he prioritized the essence of a duel, which is to take down the opponent. He points out that he made Mu Gung cry, but he was able to take him down without a single physical injury. The instructors could not believe that Shaolin's chain punch technique was so easily defeated by some new, untrained kid, and his strange technique at that. They knew Mu Gung lost, but were refusing to acknowledge that. At this rate, they knew people might start doubting Shaolin's martial arts. Or, in the worst-case scenario, all the new disciples might leave Shaolin. They all turn to Hai Jun, wondering what they are supposed to do. To the astonishment of everyone present, Hai Jun's expression was not one of anger or disappointment. Instead, he was smiling. With calm composure, Hai Jun approached Mu Jin. He inquired into the nature of the technique used, whether it had inflicted any actual harm. Mu Jin was slightly unsure of what to expect but responded in affirmation. Without hesitation, Hai Jun says Mu Jin had remained faithful to the very spirit of Shaolin, discipline, restraint, and control. Victory, therefore, belonged to him. The declaration shocks the other monks. The instructors were visibly stunned. Even Mu Jin found himself momentarily lost in disbelief. For a figure like Hai Jun, to acknowledge his victory was beyond what he had expected. Yet, Hai Jun did not stop there. He points out that Mu Jin's technique had succeeded not merely due to its execution, but because his opponent's level had been that of a loser. Mu Gung, already bruised, visibly recoiled at the stinging word. Hai Jun further elaborates that the ultimate reason they learn martial arts is to take down evil demonic heads. He then decides to personally show the true essence of Shaolin's martial arts, which can take down the evil demonic heads. He ordered instructors to retrieve a large boulder. The boulder was soon brought to the courtyard. Some dared to wonder, could he be planning to break the boulder using only his bare fist? Even Mu Jin found himself unsettled by the scene unfolding before him. Hai Jun tells them to look carefully, as this is the true power of the chain punch that they are all learning right now. Hai Jun stood still, inhaled slowly, and centered his energy. He then launched a single, focused punch into the surface of the stone. The impact was immediate. The boulder shattered into fragments. The disciples were left spellbound, their eyes widened in shock, their mouths agape. None had expected this kind of strength, this kind of mastery, to reside in a technique they had only just begun to learn. Mu Jin, too, was left momentarily surprised. He turns excited, knowing that this is real martial arts. Images formed in his mind. Just one impact is enough to break open a mountain, one swing of the sword can bring down hundreds of enemies, and one punch is enough to explode the enemy. Yet as his admiration surged, so too did confusion. Mu Jin turned back to Hai Jun. He reminded Hai Jun how he said the point is to overpower the enemy without harming them. Confused, Hai Jun affirms. Mu Jin then points out that he broke the boulder to pieces. Mu Jin seemed to have raised the unspoken question as heavy silence settled over the training hall. Hai Jun later meets with Hyun Sung, one of the hall leaders. After hearing about Mu Jin's victory, Hyun Sung said the kid was not ordinary. Hai Jun agrees, saying that the kid is rather arrogant, but he trains the chain punch the hardest out of all the young monks. Hyun Sung points out that Hai Jun is worried that the kid is training the chain punch to try and figure out its fatal weak points. Hai Jun hesitatingly agrees. Hai Jun worries that the kid might be a spy for the unorthodox alliance or perhaps the demonic cult. His eyes widen at the possibility. Meanwhile, Mu Jin is deeply irritated as he listens to the instructor's lecture. He trembles in frustration, doing his best to control his temper. Hyun Sung says there is no need for Mu Jin to do something eye-catching if he is a spy. Hai Jun suggests it might be reverse psychology. Hyun Sung points out that Mu Jin is still a new disciple and there is nothing to worry about. He suggests observing Mu Jin over time and finding out if he is just unique or if he really is a spy. A sudden realization clicks in him, and he suggests the possibility of Mu Jin being from a martial arts family. Hai Jun knew that made sense. He doubts Mu Jin could have come up with those strange training exercises by himself. He says those training methods could be what he learned from his family. Hyun Sung sighs. He argued that the greatest figure in a child's life is their father. He says Mu Jin might just want to prove that his father's teachings are better than Shaolin's, which has been around for more than a millennium. Mu Jin would have passed out if he heard about how ridiculous their conversation was. Hyun Sung adds on, saying that since Mu Jin defeated Mu Gung, he will become more arrogant. He wonders aloud what they should do about him. Pondering for a while, he suggests they leave him to the Bayob gang. Hyun Sung was surprised and asked if he meant the one who was in the disciple court. Hyun Sung tells him not to worry, as Bayob gang has volunteered to join the Arhat Hall instead. On the other hand, the instructors were making their way back to their bedchambers after a good workday. But as they witnessed Bayob gang exercising, they decided to skip their usual path and take another one. They referred to Bayob gang as Mad Dog and wondered what he was doing here. One of the instructors revealed that he usually trains late at the training ground. So, what is he really doing here? Another instructor points out that he is practicing horse stance. They begin to chuckle and say that they all know why he is called the Mad Dog. But their laughs will not come to a halt as one of them reveals that the Mad Dog is going to be in the Arhat Hall starting tomorrow. There are apparently even rumors that Bayob gang will not become the next master of the disciplined court. This is why they were not able to understand why he was going to Arhat Hall. They did not want to live life with the Mad Dog again. Among the second-class disciples, Bayob gang, who was pretty influential, has always grilled his juniors ever since they were third-class disciples and maintained their discipline of Shaolin. One of the men reveals that Bayob gang said he was going to join all the halls and courts to learn about the rules of Shaolin before going back to the disciplined court. The others say that this is expected of the rules fanatic. He lives and swears by rules after all. That is why, despite being scary, he is worthy of respect. The rules fanatic Bayob gang has worked hard to be a role model for the rest. It is because he does not think it would be correct to ask others to follow the rules if he is not able to follow them himself. Obviously, he also spent way more time in basic training than the others. After training without much rest, his knees underwent brutal training. If he does not use internal energy, he will experience so much pain that even walking would be tough. That is how damaged his knees are right now. However, Bayob gang did not care. He believed that basic training is both physical and mental training. He had considered the pain that came with the training to be a part of training his mind. And he just finished practicing horse stance for more than 30 minutes. He reflects on the new kid, Mu-jin, who has been labeled as the problem child, but is also recognized as a promising disciple of the Arhat Hall. He is determined to teach the young monk the proper mindset that a Shaolin disciple should possess. The next morning, all the monks were shocked to see Baeob Gang and asked what he was doing there. It appears that he will be joining our Arhat Hall instead, so he will be working with them from now on. Mu-jin looks at him and is impressed by the guy's body. To him, the Baeob Gang looked like a soldier, but he notices the weird and tense expressions of the other instructors. As for the young disciples, they had no idea who he was, while others were fearing him. Mu-jin saw what was happening and figured out their situation quickly. Baeob Gang must be the disciplinary second-class disciple, but he does not care about that. The morning training commences, and every disciple begins to practice the horse stance. Baeob Gang believed that in order to guide someone, one must find out the exact problem. If you know the enemy and yourself, you will win every single battle, because he knows he needs to know the problem's root to treat it accurately. And so he began to observe Mu-jin closely. He watches Mu-jin practice in his own way. His legs were spread wider than his shoulders, his back was straight while he was keeping his rear outwards, and his toes were facing forward. He tries to reenact his posture. He also copies Mu-jin's way of breathing after each movement and breathing out when he gets up. After a while, Baeob Gang realizes that it is not any different. He still feels the same pain as when he does the horse stance. He guesses this is all a trick to escape training. Before he can begin to teach Mu-jin a lesson, his thoughts are disrupted by the boy himself. Mu-jin points out that is not how you do it. Baeob Gang turns confused. Mu-jin says that his posture is wrong. Mu-jin internally groans when Baeob Gang asks what is wrong. He now must teach the man from A to Z. He does not know why Baeob Gang is trying to copy what he is doing, but every time he bends his knees, he can hear his knees popping. His body is basically screaming that his knees are damaged. Therefore, as a trainer, Mu-jin cannot ignore this. He is reminded how the man is supposed to be the disciplinary master. He guesses it would be really good if he had him by his side. It will make his life easier in this place by winning him over since he has authority here. Mu-jin explains that if he does what he did with a bad knee, then he will do himself more harm than good. He asks the man if he can trust him and move according to how he tells him to. Baeob Gang was a little shocked. After a while of teaching Baeob Gang appropriate postures, things began to work. Baeob Gang learned stretching lunges. Mu-jin explains that this is the tendon extension technique, and this posture will loosen the muscles in his knees. Mu-jin adds that if he does this warm-up before the actual exercise, he will be able to even do the movements in a softer manner and reduce the pressure placed on his knees. Baeob Gang says he can feel the difference. Mu-jin tells him to do this movement with a 30-second interval, and that makes a set. In other words, he just needs to do this 3 times. Baeob Gang grows confused and asks, "What is a set?" Mu-jin says he just misspoke. After the set was completed, Mu-jin checked on Baeob Gang's knees as he was groaning in pain. As he lightly massages his knee, Mu-jin notices how much pain the man is in. The training he has done has put so much pressure on his knees, and it is no wonder they are so damaged. Baeob Gang was absolutely stunned. At first, it was so painful, as if someone had just hit his knee, but now he is feeling more relieved and strangely refreshed. Mu-jin tells Baeob Gang to start again, as they were in the second round but stopped. He tells him to get up, as training waits for no man. Baeob Gang wonders what kind of child Mu-jin is. The other monks began to watch the duo in disdain. They wondered what Baeob Gang was doing with Mu-jin. Mu-jin explains to the man, but he needs to do this kind of exercise if his knee does not feel good. Baeob Gang is known as someone who is fanatical over rules. This is why he was nicknamed Mad Dog. Baeob Gang had been haunting the second-class disciples without rest ever since he joined Shaolin Temple. Everyone knows just how crazy and obsessive he can be. That very Baeob Gang is now acting friendly and training with a strange new monk. Mu-jin tells Baeob Gang that they will rest for a while and repeat this 15 times. Mu-jin asked if the posture he was doing earlier was as if he were sitting on a chair. Baeob Gang agrees and mentions how Mu-jin said he should not do that just now. Jin says that is because his knees are currently in a bad condition. He needs to bend his knees slightly to reduce the pressure put on his knees. Jin says he will summarize it and tell him the sequence of the exercises, to which Baeob Gang agreed. Jin says he should first bend his knees slightly and slowly sit down. Then, as he sits down, he must avoid exerting strength from his knees. He should exert strength only from his thighs and rear. Then, just like step 2, you would only exert strength from his thighs and rear when standing up. Baeob Gang follows the steps and says he feels fine. Baeob Gang was beyond surprised as he definitely felt less pain. Jin suggests moving on to his calves now that 3 rounds of exercise have been done. Jin was an experienced personal trainer in real life. He knew that members that looked like soldiers, unlike their fierce appearance, were weak to friendly people. Jin employs the same tactic as Baeob Gang, praising him for successfully correcting his posture and noting that it is to be expected from someone who exercises regularly. Baeob Gang chuckles in response, mentioning that he has been a member of the Shaolin Temple for 18 years. The instructors were shocked. They wondered if the man really went mad because they kept calling him Mad Dog. On the other hand, Jun could feel his blood pressure rising. He had such a headache that he decided to ignore the two of them for now. The meeting terminated, and it was breakfast time. Jin guides Baeob Gang to do what he just taught him. When he is training his lower body, he says it would work best if he did it before his actual training. Although Baeob Gang looked like he was bewitched as he followed Jin's instructions, he did not just follow them blindly. He simply decided to follow Jin's instructions after experiencing his training methods for himself. This is what Baeob Gang decided after he received personal training, stretching lessons, and even a massage from a top-class personal trainer. He deduced that the child's techniques are incredible. Those were effective techniques that cannot be spoken ill of. He believed that both the tendon extension technique and the pressure-relieving technique were amazing. He experienced almost none of the knee pains that he usually experiences, and he could feel the stretch in the muscles of his lower body when he trained. Baeob Gang questions if he was taught these techniques by his family. Jin grows confused. Baeob Gang elaborates that he must be from an extraordinary family, seeing how his techniques are so effective. He says he was told that those techniques were passed on within Jin's family for generations. Jin smirks, realizing they had this kind of misunderstanding. As he thinks back, he realizes he did act a little strangely. He was wondering how to get back from that, but this is a great opportunity to do so. He responds affirmatively, stating that he learned techniques from his family. Baeob Gang expresses his admiration for these techniques, calling them magnificent. However, he clarifies that his praise pertains only to the treatment they provided for his knees. He asserts that their training for martial arts in Shaolin has a history of 1,000 years of being the best. Baeob Gang says he understands the child's heart for his family, but it would be great if his training showed and also improved. Jin says he will take note of that. He is then interrupted as his fellow friend appears. Jin excuses himself and Baeob Gang thanks him. And so, Jin and his friend left for breakfast. Soon, Jun appears behind Baeob Gang. Baeob Gang apologizes to the senior monk for being unsightly. Jun chuckles, pointing out that he did know how he looked. Baeob Gang explains that he has to know his enemies to win his battle, so he has to experience it himself. Jun sighed and asked what does he think after experiencing it for himself. Baeob Gang answers that, from what he experienced from the child, he believes Jin comes not from a family of martial arts, but from a family of physicians. Upon asking why he thinks so, Baeob Gang discloses that his knees are in pretty bad shape from harsh training. Jun was shocked and asked why he did not say anything up till now. Baeob Gang said he did not want to worry his seniors and elders, and most importantly, he did not want to show his juniors his weak side. Even his juniors, who have trained alongside him for over 10 years, have not realized that his knees are in poor condition. But it was Jin who first noticed. He explains that Jin taught him exercises that did not strain his knees. Jun grows frustrated and wonders what to do with the child. He says that because of such a talented child like him, the training of Shaolin is about to collapse. Baeob Gang tells him not to worry, as he will guide Jin onto the correct path. He lightheartedly suggests that young children tend to listen to the words of grown-ups that they are close to. Instead of being forceful with the child, he will get close to him and slowly teach him Shaolin training methods. Haijun agrees, saying they should not rush things. He says he is counting on Baob Gang. Afternoon arrived, and soon it was time for Buddhism lessons, but Mu Jin groans, still not getting used to them. He wonders if it is because his body is still young, but the food coma is real. Haijun suggests that they will go on to the next training, as all of them seem to have perfected the form of chain punch. He explains that one can only exert the full prowess of martial arts by harmoniously combining internal and external energy. And so from today, they will prepare to master their internal energy. 2 second-class disciples came forward for the demonstration. The young disciples are told to assume the lotus position they have learned. Mu Jin wonders what that is. Soon, everyone gets into position, making him remember the posture. Haijun tells them to close their eyes and focus on their breathing. He tells them to breathe in as deeply as they come through their walls. After that, they allowed the air they had breathed in to pass through their nostrils and throat. They should then keep breathing until it reaches their energy core. Mu Jin was beyond ecstatic. The day he can finally learn the martial arts he has been dreaming of has arrived. The lotus position suddenly seemed too cool to him. All their training has been exercised so far that Mu Jin was starting to get sick of it. But it seems there is finally some learning of something that looks like martial arts. Mu Jin was not the only one excited to learn. The other young disciples were also excited to begin this new training, as it inevitably gave them a new reason to train. They are finally learning the 1,000-year-old martial arts of Shaolin. They were all dreaming of being able to break the boulder like the senior monk showed them. They focused on Haijun's voice and breathed in and out multiple times. But soon, Mu Jin grows uneasy. Something about this training seemed strange to him. Mu Jin gets that this is a breathing technique, but it seemed somewhat different from the Shaolin training methods that he sees in novels. He looks around at the instructors, wondering if they are not going to teach them the chant for inner energy cultivation techniques, things like yin and yang, the 5 elements, Bagua, or the Oriental philosophy stuff. He guesses there might be a good reason for all of this. An hour passed by. Mu Jin, who had been tackling all the training methods of Shaolin up until now, had been doing his best this time as well to follow all that he was told to do. It is because he was excited while thinking he would be learning real martial arts. He wanted to acquire inner energy. It was the source of power that allowed a human to split a mountain and fly in the sky. Mu Jin assumed he would be able to obtain inner energy, a transcendental power enabling him to do all that. Therefore, he was beyond happy to learn the technique, which was the epitome of Murim novels. All of this was what he had only been reading in novels. Soon, the instructor tells everyone to open their eyes. The instructor then explains that the energy circulation technique they just learned is a basic breathing method that allows them to feel the energy and accumulate it within their body. It is because they need to be able to feel energy before they can perform inner energy cultivation techniques. He further argues that they should be able to practice the energy circulation technique whenever they are free and practice hard so they can feel the energy. Hearing this, Mu Jin gets disappointed. He cannot believe they are making them start with basic breathing techniques again. Their point is that they should be able to sense energy first in order to gain inner energy. He gets cut off from his thoughts as the instructor gives him a notebook. Mu Jin questions what it is. The instructor responds that it is the book that the second-class disciples are giving out now and has images of human meridians. Haijun says there is no need to memorize the whole book and they should just memorize the main meridians. He says they can use it when they're circulating their energy or use it to subdue their opponent. Mu Jin grins in excitement. Meridians are passageways where energy flows within the body. Energy is not the only thing that flows in them, inner energy does as well. Due to that, understanding the meridians is needed for learning martial arts. Haijun reveals that they will now be teaching the disciples the names and the locations of the meridians. As he continues explaining, Mu Jin stares at the book. He hopes to memorize all of this by today. Later that evening, he ponders deeply. The disciples were told that memorizing the meridians and practicing the energy circulation technique would help to accumulate energy. Once they are familiar with the energy circulation technique, they will be able to learn Shaolin's enlightenment cultivation technique. Mu Jin knows that means he could try out some moves right after he masters the energy circulation technique to a certain extent. He gets cut off from his thoughts as he sees Baeob Gang exercising. Baeob Gang reveals he has been trying to train more after Mu Jin's exercises have been quite beneficial for his aching knees. But Mu Jin was not pleased. He could practically hear the man's joints creaking. He says that he thought the exercises did not hurt him so his knees could recover. But Baeob Gang doesn't pay much heed to his words, asserting that iron only gets stronger the more it is struck. He contracts his biceps, telling him to look at the awesome muscles that he has trained for over 18 years. However, Mu Jin did not care. That was all skin since Baeob Gang only ate vegetables and nothing with protein. Mu Jin corrects him that iron only becomes stronger if you strike it in the correct manner. If you overdo it, it will break. He says the same applies to humans as well. He politely tells Baeob Gang to take a seat. Baeob Gang obliges. Mu Jin begins to massage him, saying he will do some pressure relieving. He tells Baeob Gang to inform him if it hurts, but the man does not do so even though it hurts. Massaging such injured knees reminded Mu Jin of the past, back when he was in special forces. His body was severely injured when he tried to just grit through the training after already being injured. Even though he suffered so badly, his mission required him to cross a river. In the end, he was forced to retire from the service. At that time, he really lived every day without any energy. Now as he looks at Baeob Gang, it reminds Mu Jin of the old him from back then. Mu Jin says that if his body is injured, he is the only one who suffers, and no one else will take responsibility for it because he urges Baeob Gang to treasure his body. As soon as he says those words, he wonders if they sound too much like a lecture. Baeob Gang caresses his head. He kindly says that he does not know what the boy went through before he came here. But he assures Mu Jin that Shaolin does not abandon their disciples just because their bodies are in bad shape. He confidently says they will not abandon anyone regardless of what happens. Mu Jin smiles, saying that must be the case if he says so. Baeob Gang loves telling him to trust him and train in the ways of Shaolin now, where he stops midway and screams in pain. It was the first scream the Baeob Gang let out after joining Shaolin for 18 years. Baeob Gang turns embarrassed and swiftly gets up. He asks where Mu Jin is going. Mu Jin replied that he was going back to his room to practice the energy circulation technique that he learned today. Baeob Gang grows confused and asks if he should not already be able to feel the energy from the inner energy cultivation technique taught by his family. He points out that since he is from a physician's family, he should be able to read the flow of energy. Mu Jin flinches, knowing that he might be exposed. He hesitatingly makes excuses that he has not learned due to some personal circumstances at home. Baeob Gang suggests practicing the energy circulation technique here. He says he was also thinking of circulating his energy after he is done with his training before he goes back to his room. He suggested they train together then. Baeob Gang smiles, saying Mu Jin might be able to sense energy more easily if he circulates his energy beside him. Mu Jin found the deal convincing enough. No matter how much he tried to feel his energy, Mu Jin still had no idea what it would feel like. If Baeob Gang can use his energy beside him, he might be able to learn something from it. And so, he decides to give it a try. Baeob Gang chuckles and tells him to pay close attention and learn what he can from what he sees. Baeob Gang sits down and focuses on his breathing. Mu Jin could feel the air around Baeob Gang was different, making him realize this was the real energy circulation. He hopes to take this chance to find out what is different between him and Baeob Gang. He then begins to see something. He then turns surprised as he comprehends that this is the energy Hai Jun was talking about. The disciples were told that when breathing out, they should breathe out through the mouth after gathering all the evil energies within their bodies. When breathing in, they should breathe as deeply as they can to absorb the pure energy of nature until it reaches their energy core, located at the center of their body. And so, Mu Jin could identify the difference between himself and Baeob Gang. He had failed at breathing technique, posture, and absorbing energy. He begins to focus on his breathing, and soon enough, he can feel the energy. However, that is all there is to it. The energy he could produce was the size of a grain. He cannot believe it is so small that it is a miracle he can even feel it. but he was able to regain confidence quickly, thinking that it was at least something. On the other hand, Baeub Gang was quite shocked. He could not believe that the child had already felt energy. It seems monk Haijun and Hyun Sung were right. This child will become a pillar that will hold up 1,000 years of Shaolin history. Mu Jin has got to know a rough grasp of how to sense energy and store it. He has practiced breathing techniques a lot, so it is stable now that he is familiar with it. He suddenly opens his eyes, feeling unusually cold. Baeub Gang stood in front of him, smiling. Mu Jin turns astonished, realizing that much time has passed now. He apologizes, saying he did not know it was this late. Baeub Gang tells him not to worry and just go back to his accommodations quickly since they are about to strike the bell. Mu Jin sincerely thanks Baeub Gang for instructing him. Baeub Gang was astonished that the kid had already reached this level even though he is sensing energy for the first time. He laughed, assuring Mu Jin that he would be able to learn the enlightenment cultivation technique. Mu Jin says he can sense energy now, but asks if he does not need to memorize all the meridians in order to learn the cultivation technique. Baeub Gang frowns and asks if he should not know all of that by now since he is from a physician family. Mu Jin realizes he has let his guard down again. He awkwardly agrees with the man, saying he was just joking. Baeub Gang chuckles and tells him to go back quickly. Mu Jin was frustrated with this stupid physician family setting. He must memorize all the meridians in a day. Mu Jin came for the next day's training session, tired and sleep-deprived. Haijun tells the disciples to step forward if they can sense energy and have memorized the meridians. Mu Jin was relieved that he managed to memorize all the meridians somehow. And so he steps forward, feeling good to be one of those that did so. But he looks around in surprise, seeing that a few had stepped forward. Mu Jin wonders if sensing energy is something that is simpler to do than he thought. Haijun says he will tell them the next step now. Mu Jin was confused. According to the novel's setting, Mu Jin is supposed to be an exceptional genius. Therefore, he wonders what is happening here. Haijun shows the disciples the basics of the Shaolin cultivation technique book. He says it will not take long since these are the basics. He says he will teach them slowly from simple steps. The disciples were truly shocked to see that some of the disciples had sensed energy and memorized the meridians in a day. Mu Yul questioned Mu Jin, how did he do it? Mu Jin explains that the basics were not complicated. He begins to explain the whole procedure to him, making him confused. Mu Jin, you could tell his friend, did not understand a single thing. He motivates him to focus on his breathing for now, as he will be able to do it soon. Mu Jin continued to memorize the meridians and sequences until he got them perfectly memorized. He memorized the basic martial art of Shaolin, the enlightenment cultivation technique. He could feel the energy filling up faster. He cannot believe he is learning about the inner energy that he has read about in novels. He could feel himself growing, which made it fun. It felt nice to be the protagonist. Mu Jin's training progressed smoothly. His training is interjected as Mu Yul approaches him with a motionless boy on his shoulder. This surprises Mu Jin. Mu Yul assures him that it is not a corpse. He says it is Mu Kyung who joined Shaolin earlier than him. Mu Jin asks why he is carrying him and dragging him around. Mu Yul says he needs to get him up, but he is completely out of it. Mu Jin observes the monk. He points out that the dirt on him is obviously caused by Mu Yul. But there was a strange bruise on Mu Kyung's body as well. It looks like someone beat him up. Mu Jin also notices a lot of other bruises on his body. As he ponders further on the situation, he realizes that Mu Kyung's name sounds a little familiar. He was tall, scrawny, and looked gaunt, unlike the other kids. He looked like a scarecrow with sunken cheeks. Right now, this is the image of him that Mu Jin barely remembered in passing, but the memory that he had remembered was something else. It does not recognize his face, but his name is strangely familiar to him. It is like he has heard it before. Mu Jin could not recall the reason why Mu Kyung's name sounded familiar, no matter how hard he tried. However, he understood that this was not the most pressing concern then. Mu Yul asked why Mu Kyung had been beaten up. Mu Jin guesses he might have an idea. He smiled, saying he knew someone who would know about it for sure. He says that since Mu Kyung joined earlier than Mu Yul, you need to find someone who joined even earlier than him. And that is Mu Gung. And so, the two approached Mu Gung, who asked, "What is it?" Mu Jin was certain that Mu Gung did not do this, as it would be a relief that Cry Baby had the guts to beat someone up like this. He suggests Mu Gung would know what this place was like before they joined. And thus, they made their way to Mu Gung. Mu Yul accidentally dropped Mu Kyung, making them all speechless. Mu Gung questions if he just ended him. Mu Gung coldly asks why he would waste his precious training time on them. Mu Jin was annoyed by his attitude. He reminds him that he is their senior. He asked if their training is more important when he has a junior who is severely injured. Mu Gung grits his teeth, pointing out that Mu Jin is also his junior. Mu Jin provokes him by mentioning that he was beaten up by a junior. Mu Gung argues that this happened because he let his guard down at that time. His carefree attitude infuriates Mu Gung, and he tries to punch Mu Jin. However, Mu Jin dodges the attack and uses twister techniques on him. Mu Gung was surprised, knowing this junior was using weird techniques again. Mu Jin smirks, reminding him that the results will be the same even if they fight 100 times. Mu Jin offers to tell Mu Jin why he lost if he tells them why Mu Kyung is in this state. Mu Jin realizes this must be why Mu Gung has an attitude towards him. He has a grudge for losing to him before. He is very prideful, yet he loses to some techniques that he has never seen before. He must be curious about why he lost, and that must bother him a lot. Mu Gung eventually gives in and agrees to the offer. Mu Jin questions why my Kyung was beaten up. Mu Gung sighs, saying he got on the bad side of Mu Ti and the others. Mu Jin asks who Mu Ti is. Mu Gung reveals he is one of Shaolin's outer sect disciples, the only son of the Seobul escort establishment's owner. He reveals that Mu Kyung's father is the porter of the establishment. Monk Haijun was trying to recruit Mu Ti into the main temple but discovered Mu Kyung's talent when he was there. Thus, he brought him together with Mu Ti here. The issue is that Mu Ti perceives Mu Kyung as trying to surpass him, even though Mu Kyung is the son of a porter. As a result, Mu Ti has begun to bully Mu Kyung, viewing him as an annoyance. Mu Jin finds the ordeal crazy. Mu Gung says it cannot be helped as Mu Kyung's father is working for Mu Ti's family, and so he cannot even tattle on Mu Ti. Mu Jin was beyond furious. He could have understood if this place were a normal school, but this place is the Shaolin Temple, where they teach the ways of the Buddha. Enraged, he asks Mu Gung what he has been doing all this time, pointing out that he has the greatest influence among them. Mu Gung was taken aback and asked what he could do. Mu Jin says he is the strongest and can protect Mu Kyung. Mu Gung says there are 3 bullies and he cannot take all 3 of them. Mu Jin says Mu Yul told him he is the strongest. Mu Gung turns shy. He says that might look like the case in Mu Yul's eyes because the 3 bullies do not take their training seriously as they are outer sect's disciples. The martial arts of an outer set family naturally use Shaolin Temple martial arts as the base. So, Mu Jin deduces that Mu Ti must probably have already learned the basic martial arts of Shaolin. Therefore, he does not take his training here seriously. He wonders if he was one of those who stepped forward with him. Mu Kyung soon wakes up, wincing in pain. He wonders aloud where he is. He sees the 3 monks and screams in fear, crawling backward. They tell him not to worry as they will not hurt him. Mu Jin calmly explains to him that he heard about his situation from Mu Gung. He was surprised to see Mu Kyung totally avoiding people out of fear and wondered what to do with him. Mu Jin wonders just how badly was he beaten and bullied for him to become this scared. He cannot believe school violence is taking place even in the Shaolin Temple. Since his father is working for Mu Ti's family, even if he wants to talk to Monk Haijun, he is worried that it might cause more harm. Mu Jin wonders if there is no way to help him. An idea suddenly strikes his mind. He tells Mu Kyung that he might be able to help him. He explains that those guys who have been threatening him with his father should report all of them to Monk Haijun. Mu Kyung asks if he is teasing him, saying there is no way they will let his father off. Mu Jin grins, saying that is also simple. He states that the situation will be resolved if he becomes a disciple of the main martial group. A main martial disciple is someone who has been accepted into the main martial group and continues their training there. Outer sect disciples usually stay outside of Shaolin. Even if they are from a prominent establishment, they cannot recklessly interfere with a main disciple of the Shaolin Temple. However, not everyone can become a main disciple. Everyone understood Mu Jin's intentions and what he aimed to achieve, except for one person. Mu Jin shrugs in a carefree manner. He tells him to think about it. He knew there was also a chance that this would not work. But he remembers how Baeob Gang had said that the Shaolin Temple would never abandon any disciple, no matter what happened. It is time to see if what he said is true. He assures mocking that monk Hai Jun and the Shaolin Temple will never let these people off. So he asked Mu Kyoung if he wanted to try it. Mu Jin sees Mu Kyoung getting quiet and asks if he does not have the confidence to become a main disciple. Mu Kyoung can't even form a sentence. His stuttering sounds less like words and more like a dying pigeon. Mu Jin continues with his questions, asking if he intends to allow his father to stay and work under the family of someone who bullies him. He warns Mu Kyoung that his father will have to keep working under Mu T if he gives up. Just knock some sense into the war, and he agrees to give it a try once. Mu Jin is satisfied with his answer and says he will then tell him about the second plan. He asserts that they cannot just let them bully him until he becomes a main disciple. He suggests Mu Kyoung beat Mu T first. 3 days passed by. Mu T sits in an alleyway, smirking, revealing to his sidekicks how he threatened Mu Kyoung to come here. The other 2 underlings were also excited to give him a good beating. They talk about how they have seen the boy mingling with some other losers, including Mu Jin. The 3 boys were happy, as they had wanted to give the arrogant Mu Jin a beating for a long time. They get cut off as they see Mu Kyoung tagging along with Mu Jin's gang towards them. The bullies were too ignorant to see that Mu Jin was stronger than them. Instead, they ridiculed him and his friends. Mu Jin turns to Mu Kyoung, reminding him of what he taught him. With that, Mu Kyoung steps in front to challenge his bully, Mu T. The showdown begins. Mu T looks down at him with disdain, reminding him of what would happen to his father if he ends up in a bad position. Mu Kyoung musters up enough courage to try to punch Mu T, who narrowly dodges it. As for Mu Gung, he was fighting with the bully who had called him a gorilla not so long ago. To the bully's surprise, Mu Gung was giving a totally different vibe right now. He seemed stronger than usual. Previously, Mu Jin had revealed the reason to Mu Gung why he kept losing to him. Mu Jin explained that the chain punch he used is definitely fast and strong, but that is actually all there is to it. Mu Gung was astonished and asked, "Isn't that what is most important in martial arts?" Mu Jin smiled and got into position, saying that he will understand if he experiences it with his body. He then suggests attacking him with a chain pump first technique, and he asks him to try avoiding it. Mu Gung succeeds. Mu Jin then suggests he dodge the second technique. Mu Gung was surprised by how easy it all was. But it turns out Mu Jin had lied and went for a lower kick instead. "Surprise, life hurts," Mu Jin had quipped. Mu Gung fell in pain, asking why he had lied. Mu Jin says that was the point he was trying to make. If his opponent already knows what is coming, who would just get hit on purpose? He lectured Mu Gung to deceive his opponents for his attacks to work. He says that before he punches, even he can tell what he is about to do just from his posture. Mu Gung becomes determined, saying that he just needs to be so fast that his opponent can't dodge even if they know what is coming. Mu Jin shouts out, saying that he is not completely wrong, but that is only correct when he becomes the strongest in the world someday. For example, like the protagonist in the previous work of the author who wrote the Shaolin Chronicles. The blade techniques of the protagonist, who was the strongest in both the unorthodox faction and in the world, were unmatchable. The novel said that his blade techniques could not be dodged even if they knew what they were. In other words, if you're not the strongest in the world, what you said does not apply to Mu Gung. Thus, Mu Jin suggests Hetri deceiving his opponents until then. He elaborates that there needs to be psychological warfare, like saying you will use paper in a rock-paper-scissors game. Back in the fight, Mu Gung grins and uses that same trickery. His bully eats dirt, proving the lesson right. Speed is cool, but psychological warfare is king, especially when your opponent has the IQ of a turnip. Mu Jin had told Mu Gung he needs to know how to use some deception until he becomes fast enough for people to be unable to dodge his attacks even if they see them coming. This put Mu Gung into deep thought, as he had never thought of this before. Mu Gung, who had always thought trickery was cowardly, looked like a kid realizing Santa wasn't real, soul-crushed, but also a little enlightened. But the more he thinks about it, the more he realizes Mu Jin is right. Grateful for the advice, Mu Gung decides to share classified intel on Mu T and his thugs. He warns Mu Jin not to underestimate them. Mu Jin, puzzled, reminds him that he had bragged about being stronger earlier. Mu Gung smirks as he explains that he was not fighting at his full strength. He emphasizes that if it had been a real fight rather than sparring, he would have utilized his family's martial arts techniques. Additionally, he would have drawn on the inner energy he has accumulated over time. He drags the gang into a hidden corner to show off his secret arts, looking around like he's smuggling drugs instead of flexing Kai. The other three questioned why he is being so discreet, to which Mu Gung revealed that he does not want to upset the elders by using his family's martial arts. While Mu Yul remained on the lookout, Mu Gung was certain that they would be surprised by his power and Mu Jin would start respecting him a little. As Mu Gung activates his mana, Mu Jin's eyes widen in surprise. He could tell this is definitely different from when Mu Gung used the chain punch. It has got power and speed and should be around the level of a high school boxer. Although the power is not as strong as he had imagined, considering his age, Mu Gung is pretty much a monster. With every kick or punch, the air is snapping. He realizes this must be why he said things could get dangerous for him. It is because if he fights Mu T and his underlings right now, they will all use their own martial arts to fight him. He now sees why people say Mu Gung is the strongest among the young monks. But Mu Jin could tell Mu Gung is not able to freely control his own inner energy yet. And so he guesses it is possible to take him on if this is all he has. After meeting Mu Gung and Mu Kaiung, Mu Jin can tell that there is a certain form and posture to punch in order for them to utilize their energy. Thus, he thinks this incoming punch is child's play. He effortlessly dodges it as the movement range was pretty predictable. Mu Gung was shocked. He ends up being defeated once again, earning a gut punch from Mu Jin. Down goes the strongest young monk, again. Meanwhile, Mu Kaiung, face bloody, knuckles red, finally exacts revenge. He looks less like a bullied kid and more like a horror movie extra crawling out of a massacre. That's when it clicks. After finally seeing Mu Kaiung in such a disheveled state, Mu Jin remembers how he has heard his name somewhere a lot of times. He was the one who made a complete mess of his opponent's face, the one who stained both his hands red with blood and whose eyes were full of madness and blood that stained his face as well. Shivers crawled down Mu Jin's spine. He had just taught this kid to stand up for himself. Congratulations, trainer, you might have just unleashed a future psychopath with a blood fetish. It is a character in the Return of the Demon Supreme, the most insane character of all, a villain character who loves blood more than anyone else, Mu Kaiung, the Blood Monk. Mu Jin had forgotten all about the novel he loved as a child as time passed by. But there was an illustration of a memorable character that was hidden away in a corner of his memory. This character would always say that all humans are evil and that he would use blood to wash away the cycle of sins from them. He was truly a lunatic, the Blood Monk. Mu Jin's mouth fell open in utter astonishment at the scene that he was witnessing. Right now had reminded him of the madness and horror of the Mu Kaiung that he had only read about in the novel. All he could wonder was what he had awakened. He quickly snaps out of it, knowing what's more important is to stop Mu Kaiung before he ends up killing Mu T. He and Mu Yul drag Mu Kaiung away from Mu T. Mu Kaiung eventually calms down a bit, while Mu Jin still wonders how he became so strong. He then sees Mu Kaiung completely break down, making him guess he's still not the Blood Monk yet. If Mu Jin's memory serves him right, the Blood Monk only ever appeared as a crazy person in the novel. It did not mention how he became the Blood Monk. Did he cross the line he was not meant to after enduring such absurd situations where he was constantly bullied? He gets cut off from his thoughts as an extremely furious-looking Bayab gang approaches them. Mu Jin thinks of how they are in deep shit now. No shit, Sherlock. Bayab gang demands that they better give him a good explanation for what has happened here. Mu Jin requests him to take a look at Mu Kaiung's body. Bayab gang's eyes widen, and his fury dissipates as he sees the boy's body covered with endless wounds. He was shocked to his core and froze in his tracks as he asked to tell him exactly what happened. Mu Jin, in a serious tone, explains that these injuries were inflicted by fellow monks who bullied Mu Kaiung for 2 months. Apparently, they had called him out to beat him up again today, so he decided to help the boy. The rage that had dissipated initially now returned back to Bayob Gang as he faces the bullies, asking if it is the truth. He immediately starts investigating and asks the underlings if this is the truth. Soon, more instructors began to approach after hearing the commotion. They were all too shocked to say a word. Bayob Gang then turns to Mu Kyung and asks for his side of the story. Mu Jin supports him, telling him not to worry and to tell exactly what happened. Eventually, Mu Kyung breaks down in more tears, admitting that what Mu Jin said was the truth. Uncontrollable tears streamed down his cheeks as he slowly told them about what he experienced for the past 2 months. Because he was very emotional, he was unable to tell them the details articulately. However, he was able to get the main point over to Bayob Gang. Mu Jin addresses Bayob Gang, reminding the man of how he set the Shaolin Temple and how they will never abandon their own disciples, regardless of the situation. He says he thought Mu Kyung needed to be protected since he is also a disciple of the Shaolin Temple. Bayob Gang points out that the other children are also the disciples of Shaolin. Mu Jin's demeanor instantly shifts, and he coldly questions the people who threaten the lives of her father and son are disciples of the Shaolin Temple. He clearly questions if that is really what the Shaolin Temple stands for. They get interjected as Arhat Hall's leader, Hyun Sung, approaches the commotion. He agrees with Mu Jin but says it is true only if he is telling the truth. He suggests an immediate investigation, saying that those children will cease to be disciples of the Shaolin Temple if what he said is true. He continues saying that even if they cease to become disciples of the Shaolin Temple, what has happened over here will not be overlooked either. He asserts that the Shaolin martial arts are meant to subdue our opponents, and they are far too brutal considering they are just children. Mu Kyung panics and tries to apologize but gets interrupted by Mu Jin. Mu Jin shields Mu Kyung, taking responsibility for the damage, saying he was angry with those people who bullied the boy. He says he was not able to control his emotions and all the deeds were done by him. Because he knows the truth, if Shaolin betrays Mu Kyung, that's the final push down the path to blood-soaked madness. Better to make himself the villain today than let a blood monk rise tomorrow. He thinks if he tries to protect the boy so that he will not become the blood monk, then won't Mu Kyung become the best comrade he could want. Mu Jin is led through the forest to the temple's meditation place like a prisoner of war. Bayob Gang explains to him that he is to stay here and talk to no one while looking at the wall and meditating repeatedly. They finally reach a cave, and Bayob Gang reveals he is to receive his punishment here. The cave looked depressing enough to be a Pinterest board titled Minimalist Dungeon Core. Mu Jin was instructed not to look out of the cave, even when he is sleeping or eating. He will be given water and rice balls from time to time like a forgotten middle child. Mu Jin made his way into the cave and his punishment began. Mu Jin sighed as he took his place. He was hoping it would not be the case, but this story reflects a world that features every novel by the same author, Ga Kyung. He possessed a character in the Shaolin Chronicles, but a character from the Return of the Demon Supreme appeared before him. It is no wonder that he was so shocked. He knew that Return of the Demon Supreme and the unorthodox Tyrant Chronicles shared the same world. On second thought, he thinks that it is just the world that is the same. He thinks both protagonists are in the same time period as well. They are active in different years, so it is unlikely that they will run into each other. And in the second half of the Return of the Demon Supreme, the protagonist of the Shaolin Chronicles, the Divine Monk, would appear. That means all the novels are in a similar time. Mu Jin concludes that his actions might influence events that take place in the other novels as well. This makes him more anxious than usual, as he wonders about the occurrence of his unnecessary interference, causing a butterfly effect and getting in the way of the other novel's protagonist's growth. Imagine ruining the story because you couldn't mind your business. Peak main character complex. Mu Jin knows that if he wants to become stronger from now on, he will need to find the right places and connections. But other than the ones that will affect the protagonist's growth, he cannot remember anything else. These novels are ones that he read more than 10 years ago. He only remembers the overarching story, while his memories of the exact details are vague. If he steals those opportunities from the protagonists, the story development gets screwed up. And so, he will not know how Shaolin Chronicles will turn out. As for the Blood Monk storyline, it was already cooked. Mu Jin already took in Mu Kyung, who was supposed to become the blood monk. Now he knows he needs to make sure that works out somehow. It is because the protagonist of the Return of the Demon Supreme would gain enlightenment and become stronger in his fight with a blood monk. But the blood monk has now disappeared along with the enlightenment he is supposed to gain, which is all because of Mu Jin. Mu Jai's body trembles nervously as he wonders, where does he even start from now? Everything seemed pretty complicated. On the other hand, Baeub Gang curiously watches the boy like a proud dad. To him, the boy seemed pretty focused on repentance right now. He couldn't believe that a child of 12 years old is able to have that level of concentration and repentant mindset. On top of that, with the special techniques and talents he has shown them previously, it seems this child will become the pillar of Shaolin. A while ago, all the new monks were interrogated about the fight that occurred. The holiday were told that all of their testimonies were the same after interrogation. It is true that Mu Kyung was constantly bullied. Baeub Gang soon appeared, and they agreed that it was obvious from Mu Kyung's face and hands that he was the one who beat up Mu T. They reduced that. Mu Jin just wanted to protect his friend in that confusing situation and took the blame. Baeub Gang declared that everyone is at fault. Compared to trying to blame someone or cause someone to regret, it is more important for them to make sure it does not happen again. He says he thinks the biggest cause of this incident is due to the lack of training. He explains that they did such a vicious thing because they have too much stamina left. Thus, to prevent that from happening, he will just plant training that will tire them out more. The hall leader leaves the matter to him and Hai Young. The hall leader also says that the 3 children are guilty, so they need to be punished accordingly. He says he will go to the disciplined code first. Baeub Gang agrees, saying he will do his best to guide the children in the meanwhile. And so, back in the present, he continues watching the boy, who hasn't moved in the slightest for 2 hours now. He was truly impressed by the boy's determination and guesses there is probably no more need to monitor him. He decides to come back tomorrow early morning. He hopes the boy won't worry, as he will bring him water and rice balls from time to time. After Baeub Gang leaves, Mu Jin smiles and turns back, glad he's gone. He scoffs, mumbling how he was in the Special Forces for 7 years and it was not all for nothing. This means he can easily sense when someone is nearby. Now came the real problem, time kill mode. 7 days in a cave with no Wi-Fi, no Netflix, no protein, peak hell. He does not have beans or mushrooms to give him the protein he needs for exercising. As he thinks about it, he begins to recall when the last time he ate meat was. He remembers eating some fried chicken right before he came to this world. He drools as he remembers the crispy skin that crunched with every bite and that rendered meat. This makes him even hungrier. He then begins to ponder where he can get meat from. His mouth begins to drool even more as he realizes he can just hunt for meat out here. The scene shifts to a little girl running through the forest. She sees a rabbit being caught up in a hunter's trap. Out came Mu Jin, obsessing over protein. She quietly watched the scene unfold from the bushes. On the other side of it was an area near Mount Songshan, where the Shaolin Temple is. The Shaolin disciples spread out in this place to gather information. They talked to the people here and thus heard from them about what happened in this place. Shortly after, they all gathered at the entrance of the Sihobul escort establishment. The vice hall leader of Shaolin's outer hall, Hai Gul, greets the establishment's owner, Ximen Pyung. He was also Mu T's father. He sees his son behind the monks and becomes furious as he sees his son trembling badly. Hai Gul sighs and begins to yell at Ximen Pyung about how the reason he is acting this way is due to his own wrongdoing. He continues yelling that Mu T should have been training his body and mind to be pure, but instead he bullied his friend and caused conflict within the Shaolin Temple. He then speaks of how they found out from the people within the Yichun Prefecture that the Sihobul escort establishment has been coercing money out of the people here. He was furious beyond relief, saying he cannot believe that an outer sect that follows the Shaolin Temple would dare to do such an evil deed. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was how Hai Gul initiated the cancel culture. He orders his subordinate to make sure these people can never use martial arts again. The Shaolin Temple monks were easily able to overpower the escort establishment's guards. Hai Gul then instructed them to take everything from the establishment that has been taken unfairly from the common people and returned it. Gull then looks for Mu Kyung's father, Bang Jin. He instantly bows in apology, revealing it was his son that was bullied, and promises to take full responsibility for it. Gull and the other Shaolin disciples helped Bang Jin to transfer to work under other escort establishments affiliated with the Shaolin Temple as a porter, a place that was stable and righteous, unlike this Seobul escort establishment. In the meanwhile, Mu Jin comes across a sloppy trap in the mountain area. He becomes curious seeing it. The drop was totally trashed compared to what he made yesterday for the rabbit. He becomes alert, wondering who tried to copy his trap after seeing it. More importantly, there is someone else on this mountain other than him. He then suddenly hears a rustle in the bushes and looks sideways to see a girl. The girl sees that the boy has noticed him and begins to run away. Mu Jin tries to stop her, but when she does not stop, he rushes after her. He wonders what such a pretty girl is doing in a dangerous space like this mountain. The girl was trembling all over and began to cry. Mu Jin apologizes and serves her some food. As they talk, the girl asks if it is okay for him to eat meat, though he's a monk. Mu Jin tries to explain he has his own circumstances, even questioned why she is so deep in the mountains. He points out that her clothes seemed like they're from outside, though this place is under the Shaolin Temple. The girl immediately becomes dejected as she recalls what had occurred. She wonders if she was abandoned because she is useless or because she was not supposed to be born. Mu Jin notices how the girl has become awfully quiet and guesses she has her own circumstances that she cannot speak about. He decides to stop and change the subject. He winks at her, asking her to keep his rabbit hunting a secret. The girl questions if it is because he cannot be caught eating meat. Mu Jin becomes nervous once again, saying there are also other reasons. He says he will help her get home in return. The girl becomes hopeful as she hears this. Mu Jin explains that a shirtless monk who is quite influential will soon come to this place. Therefore, he will be able to help her easily. The girl becomes suspicious and asks how he knows that the monk's coming. Mu Jin grins, explaining that he can sense his presence. He suggests that she just needs to wait at the entrance of the cave. And so, when Bayob Gang arrives at the cave, he sees a little girl. She reveals that she got separated from her group and lost her way. Bayob Gang volunteers to help her get home. He suddenly remembered something and asked the girl if she saw a boy in that cave. Mu Jin hears this and chills run down his spine. The girl internally chuckles as she has now realized why the boy asked her to keep it a secret. She smiled, saying she was scared of the cave, so she did not go near it or see anyone come out of it. Bayob Gang was glad that the boy had not disappointed him. He guesses he can go back down now since the boy is doing well so far. He smiles, telling the girl to follow him as he will bring her down the mountain together and get her home. He asks for her name and the girl reveals she is Ryu Seolhwa. Mu Jin senses that the two have left and lies down. Mu Jin lay back down, realizing he forgot to ask her name, then shrugged. Probably an NPC. Won't see her again. The scene shifts to Bayob Gang looking for Mu Kyung, telling him he needs to talk to him. He adds that this involves his father too. Bayob Gang told Mu Kyung everything that happened in Yichun Prefecture. And he told the boy not to worry about the outside world and to do his best to become a true disciple of the Shaolin Temple. Mu Kyung broke down and vowed to do his best. Just as Mu Jin has said, the Shaolin Temple never abandons its disciple. 4 days had passed by. Mu Jin remembers the survival training he underwent in the Special Forces. This training naturally included lessons on how to procure food from the local environment, making hunting relatively easy for him. The one thing he did not think of when he cooked the meat for that girl back then was that if he hunted, animals are cooked with an open fire, he could get caught. So he switched to cooking inside nearby caves, smearing mud on the fur and burning it off like some Gordon Ramsay caveman recipe. He knows he needs to make sure he leaves as little evidence as possible. It is because he will not have enough time to clear up all the mess and pluck out the fur. He then has to cover it in mud, cook it, and then black out the fur along with the mud. Eating that meat was his first true relief since reincarnating. Forget enlightenment, protein was the real spiritual awakening. On the 5th day, he would get up earlier than the striking of the bell of the Shaolin Temple to face the world in a lotus position. You ask if that is for the sake of training hard in meditation? No, it is because of a certain presence that comes near to this cave. Translation: his spidey sense told him someone might snitch on his late-night rabbit barbecues. For food, Mu-jin would eat the grain bowl and drink the water that is given once a day. He makes up for the energy that he lacks with his hunting. You could say that he has gotten some sort of routine in his life at this point. The 6th day soon came. Once he has gotten protein and energy, Mu-jin puts his body to use immediately. He will warm his body up as much as possible by doing as much exercise as he can. He realized something as he kept moving his body. The breathing method used while exercising is similar to the energy circulation technique, so he tried to challenge himself by combining the enlightenment cultivation technique and exercises to start his own kind of training. The result of this training is that his body feels more refreshed than before. It is a pity that he does not have much time left. Mu-jin did not know at this time that this process is the training process of the energy accumulation art. The 7th day finally came, marking the completion of the wall-facing meditation. Baeub Gang arrives to take him back, suggesting they go to the training ground right away. Mu-jin questioned how the incident was handled. Baeub Gang revealed all that had happened. He also revealed that they destroyed the martial arts of everyone in that corrupt place and shut them down. They also introduced Mu Kyung's father to a new workplace. Plus, the intensity of training has increased in the last week. He then tells Mu-jin that he has allowed him to train in his own way because of what he promised him. But he suggested Hefelo the training of the Shaolin Temple, now to be fair to the rest. But Morgan suggests increasing the intensity of his own training. And so, at the Arhat training ground, Mu-jin's monk friends greeted him like he'd respawned after a week-long hibernation. They all get in positions for the morning training. Mu-jin notices the young monks wear sand pouches. They were then ordered to get into horse stance. Turns out Mu-jin's return didn't stop the tough early morning training, as the training that has gotten several times tougher caused the young monks to sweat profusely. Mu-jin also used the sand pouches to do his own exercises, although he does not really like the grip and sense of balance that these sand pouches give. But it is not like he is training to be a bodybuilder at this age, so this could be perfect. The other monks watched the boy in confusion as he was doing exercises they had never seen before. Baeub Gang makes his way to Mu-jin. The others anticipated he would finally score and reprimand him. It is true that the man was angry, as he had already told the boy the training has gotten tougher, but he was training by himself in an easier manner. But he soon notices the boy was sweating much more than the others. He wonders if it means his training is tougher than their increased training intensity. But what is more important right now is that the heavy and sharp energy radiating from the boy was that of energy accumulation art. This shocked him tremendously. The energy accumulation art is an energy circulation technique that can only be done once one has successfully accumulated energy in their body and has gotten used to energy to a certain degree. This art allows the user to break out of the norms of physique and display superhuman strength. The boulder-breaking demonstration that monk Ha-young showed previously belongs under this category. It is also possible to use it to do things like flying in the sky or moving at extremely fast speeds. However, not everyone can attain this. It is something that can only be attained after an epiphany or energy has been achieved after numerous trials and errors. That is supposed to be how it is. Thus, seeing Mu-jin like this made Baeub Gang truly stunned, which was why seeing Mu-jin casually using it left Baeub Gang utterly speechless. Meanwhile, Mu-jin was having the time of his life. He had been getting sick of repetitive body exercises, so swinging dumbbells around was giving him the adrenaline rush he craved. His triceps felt like they were about to explode. He grinned like a maniac. Unlike him, the early morning training involving the sand pouches was hell for everyone. The other young monks were surprised by his weird posture and began to stare at him, wondering what was wrong with him. But Baeub Gang looked at the boy in a slightly different light now. He could see the energy accumulation art radiating and wondered since when he was able to use it. He stops Mu-jin and tells him to follow him. Even Ha-young was shocked to see the energy accumulation radiating from Mu-jin. Mu-jin guesses it is probably the result of the wall meditation training. But if he tells them that, then he's basically admitting to them that he was doing other stuff and not his punishment, and that gave. He then says he was just trying things out. He began to spew tons of lies, saying his family places a lot of emphasis on breathing techniques, and it seems he got excited today after not exercising for a while. He says his family's breathing techniques are similar to the energy circulation techniques here, so he tried to apply the same principles. Hearing this, Ha-young and Baeob Gang were both astonished. They exchanged meaningful glances. They both know that the energy accumulation arc should only be possible after the basic enlightenment cultivation technique has been mastered. Although the enlightenment cultivation technique is a basic cultivation technique, it would still take a few years to master it. There are only very few among those who mastered it and are able to use the energy accumulation art. That is why, once the foundation is laid with the enlightenment cultivation technique, disciples move on to the next level of cultivation. At that stage, it is far more effective to spend 2 hours circulating energy with the higher level technique than to continue building energy through the energy accumulation art after mastering the enlightenment method. But what if someone, like Mu Jin, manages to grasp the energy accumulation art only a few days after learning the enlightenment technique? In that case, they can accumulate energy far more quickly than their peers. If they also begin training in the next level cultivation techniques, their progress multiplies severalfold. Thus, seeing that Mu Jin could already use the energy accumulation art at such a young age, the instructors were both delighted and astonished. They asked the boy if he could truly perform this regularly. Mu Jin, putting on his most innocent expression, claimed he could only manage it when using his family's exercise methods. With that excuse, he left to continue training. On his return, he was surprised to find Mu Kyung teaching the other young monks the stretching exercises he had shown him earlier. Mu Jin was amazed at how quickly the boy had learned and that he was already passing it on to others. Since Mu Kyung was never mentioned in the novel, Mu Jin hadn't thought much about him before. But then he noticed that Mu Gung wasn't participating. Turns out the boy's body was far too stiff to keep up. Mu Jin sighed and told him, "That's literally why we do stretching." He then introduced them to muscle-lengthening exercises, groaning in pain right alongside them. To his horror, even the idiot Mu Yul showed terrifying flexibility. Mu Gung looked on in silent determination, swearing to himself that he'd remain the strongest no matter what. Mu Jin just thought, if stubbornness were a martial art, he'd be a grandmaster. Thanks to the addition of sand pouches and to the dawn training, it became an enjoyable time doing various free weight exercises. Mu Jin was able to practice energy accumulation training in his free time. He accumulated more energy through breathing and was able to grow stronger. He would also do stretches with them in between training. The instructors also came to notice how the boys' folders have gotten wider. 10 days passed by and the change occurred for the training sessions. The instructors demonstrated the inner energy cultivation method to the new monks. Ha-young explains that the first move is the core punch. He teaches them to start circulating energy, then pull the accumulated energy in their energy core to go past the energy point. After that, 70 of their energy will go to their right arm, pass by the breath vessel point, and head to the shoulder bone point. As for the remaining 30%, it will go to their left arm. Mu Jin listens to his words with immense focus. He gathers the accumulated energy in his inner core and splits it into 7 to 3. He does exactly as Ha-young explained, shooting out immense energy, even to his surprise. He wonders if this is a concept where a part of his body is strengthened as the acupoint system, united by his energy. Is this the reason for distributing out the energy and strength of sending? All the energy is in one arm so that his body can maintain balance. He thinks it would make it hard for his left arm to play that role. When his energy grows even more, though, he thinks he also needs to put some energy into other places. His analysis is proven correct, as Ha-young further explains that in order to properly use the first move of the chain punch, one must also put energy into their lower body. But Mu Jin begins to ponder about one more thing. Since he needs to send energy into his legs and not just his arms, he must be able to control his body as a whole. He groans, thinking this is way more complicated than he thought. If he wants to be able to execute such complicated steps in a real fight, he wonders how much more training he will need. He watches Mu Yul stand cluelessly and groans. It is no wonder he wasn't mentioned in the novel. He tries his best to help Mu Yul. He suggests Heifer get the names of the acupoints and gather his energy in the center. With some time and effort, Yul was able to understand what to do. Jin tries his best to help him, but his patience is running out as he realizes the boy has the brains of a goldfish. And so that was how he started to learn how to use the chain punch. Hai Young and the second-class disciples would teach one new step each day. Since this is foundational martial arts, there are not a lot of moves, and they were able to teach everything within 10 days. After that, everyone was trained separately based on how fast their progress was. Now, in the present, 71 days have passed. Jin, Gung, Kyung, and Yul have all successfully learned the 10 moves of the chain punch. Baeob Gang notices how Jin keeps increasing the number of sand pouches during dawn training. This makes him recall the boy's training methods when he first came here. Does this mean Jin has been right all along? The Arhat leader notices Baeob Gang worries after training and questions what has happened. A while later, Baeob Gang approaches Jin and says the hall leader is looking for him. Hearing this, Jin's first thought wasn't pride, it was, crap. Did I accidentally commit a crime again? After all, why would the Arhat hall leader suddenly look for him? The Arhat hall leader continues pondering about Jin. He already figured out that the boy was talented and a little eccentric, along with the unique training techniques. But he thought that was all. But it was surprising to see that Baeob Gang would pay so much attention to him. He thought it was best to meet Jin in person and talk to him, but Jin couldn't understand the hall leader's intentions. He had called him here and done nothing but look at him for the last few minutes. Jin's nerves began to fray. Is he checking if I have lice? Why is he staring at my arms like I'm a cow at a meat market? Thus, he begins to flex his muscles. The hall leader takes note of this and asks, what is he suddenly doing? Jin hesitatingly says he just wanted to stand in a different position. Yeah, let's not explain. I panicked and started posing like a cheap bodybuilder. The hall leader chuckles, saying it has been a while since he met him like this. Jin questions if he has called him here because of that incident. The hall director denied it, saying he just wanted to confirm something with his own eyes, so he called him here. He says he now knows for sure. Jin turns confused. Can you skip to the part where I either die or get promoted? The hall leader, Hyun Sung, says his body has grown much faster than any of his peers that have joined the Shaolin Temple. However, he says that is not the only reason he has called him here. He asks Jin. If it is true, his eye-catching growth is due to the family's training method that he has been doing. Jin realizes what is going on and turns nervous. He asks the man if he is trying to find out if his training method is indeed better than the Shaolin Temple's training methods. The hall leader firmly cuts him off, saying that the Shaolin Temple is not that closed-minded. He says he wanted to make a proposal to him. Yeah, tell that to the instructor who nearly burst a vein when I suggested stretching wasn't a crime. The holiday explains that the reason the Shaolin Temple has been able to last for 1,000 years is because they have maintained the mindset to fix their shortcomings and take in what is good for them. There are times when they would be gentle and times when they would be tough. Jin was unable to get what he was saying. The man says he will think of accepting his training methods if he proves they are good. Jin's ears perk up at this proposal. He could not believe that the Arhat Hall leader, Hyun Sung, just said this. Before being a martial artist, he was a monk who practiced asceticism to become Buddha. That is a huge decision to make to improve the Shaolin Temple further. To include Jin's training would simply be a training that they're uncertain of. But now he is saying that Arhat Hall, which is in charge of the younger monks' training, would test it out first. If things go wrong, the leader will be punished by the discipline court. Despite that, he has still decided to take the gamble so that the Shaolin Temple can become even stronger. For the hall leader, he believes that the pillar of the Shaolin Temple with 1,000 years of history will become even sturdier if the boy's training method really is effective. However, his plans come to a spoil when Jin blatantly rejects him, asking why he would do that. He had not expected this, so he became irritated. Jin says he has to do his own training as well. Plus, he points out how the new monks have been treating him like he is insane because of that incident. They won't want to follow the training methods of a lunatic like him. In all honesty, Jin cannot really tell if helping the monks to grow would be more beneficial for him or whether making Shaolin stronger will help him to see the ending of this novel. But he does not really want to waste his time and efforts on training because of rude rascals. But he tells the hall leader that he has one condition if he really wants to test it out. Later that night, Mu-jin screams at the peacefully sleeping monks to wake up. The young monks think that it is time for training and they are late. Therefore, they hurry and run to the training grounds. But to their surprise, they see the lunatic monk standing in the middle of the training ground along with their instructors. Ha-young cleared his throat, saying the reason they have woken them up earlier than usual is because they will be adding some training to warm their body up before the dawn training. And additionally, Mu-jin will be overlooking their daily dawn training from now on. Mu-jin had expected such sneering responses from them. It is inevitable for tongues to wag if a peer who has a lousy reputation is suddenly put in charge of training. But now that he is in charge of this, he has no intention of letting them underestimate him anymore. Gathering all his strength, he turns on his instructor mode and shouts at them to be quiet. Even Baeob Gang was stunned to see him in a different light. Mu-jin yells at them that he will be teaching the training methods of his family during the dawn training from today onwards. This catches the attention of the new monks, and they were indeed surprised by his sudden change of demeanor. Even Ha-young couldn't help but smile proudly. There was something different in those boys' eyes. However, some of the new monks were still stubborn to submit. Therefore, they began to laugh at him. Mu-jin was filled with fury and questions if they're laughing. He's nearly saying he would love to see if they can still laugh after today's training. This makes them shut up and quiver like fools. Mu-jin demands those who have problems with him being the instructor and think they are better than him step forward. He vows to give up on being an instructor and train with all of them if they are able to overwhelm him for even an instant in the sparring that they do. 4 fools step up for the challenge. They all came at him together, but not even one was able to defeat him. Mu-jin turns to the other monks and coldly asks them to step forward if anyone else wants to try. But silence spread like an infection. Not a single monk dared move. The same boys who once laughed at him were now staring at the ground, suddenly very interested in the patterns on the floor. Mu-jin grits his teeth in fury, saying that he is a man of his word and will lead the training from now on. He tells them not to forget to address him as the instructor during dawn training. He then yells at everyone to get down on the ground. Mu-jin says he will double the sand pouches for those whose stomach touches the ground. It makes them bend their arms and raise their body and do push-ups. Seeing Mu-jin at work, Baeob Gang wonders if he has thought of others back home before. Mu-jin's training method was proceeding smoothly, but he would not be managing all 70 of the new monks himself. And so, he had asked Mu-kyung, Mu-gung, and Mu-yul for help since they had already learned from him before. They would act as assistants for the trainings that they had learned so far, and so they were able to control the young monks and educate them. Mu-jin thinks that Mu-kyung will gain confidence as he reaches his own peers. Though being a Buddhist was off, Gang, who was more alive than a soldier, was able to learn the perfect training for himself through Mu-jin. He stares at the children who were fooling around before and is satisfied at how they are being tamed. The effects of training appeared quickly within the young monks. It could be because they're young, but there was an obvious improvement in their stamina and body physique. As for the older monks, who felt a little uneasy and unsure about Morgan's instructor mode, they now begin to trust Mu-jin. Mu-jin becomes excited as the things he had ordered for training the younger monks had finally arrived. The equipment included an iron shelf, an iron bar, and weights. Apart from the iron bar, the rest was made of wood, so it seemed a little unsettling to him, but he guesses it should probably be fine since it is still pretty light. He has decided to put all this to good use along with the sand pouches. The truth is, even with the 3 musketeers helping him out, there is a limit to how much they could teach more than 70 young monks. Mu-jin also did not have enough time for his own training. That was why he made a request for this custom-made set. He smiles gleefully, unable to believe he can do these exercises in the morn. His chest and gluteus muscles were twitching in excitement at working out. In the blink of an eye, 4 months passed by. Through consistent training, Mu-jin was able to improve to the next level. In fact, it's multiple levels ahead. The bar and the wooden weights he would lift were around 90 kg. He was able to lift weights beyond his body weight at just the age of 13 and was getting stronger quickly. He felt a great sense of satisfaction every day. He lived a satisfying life by managing a big number of young monks and also trained diligently personally. He continued this life of his consistently. Autumn and winter went by, then the white snow melted and plants began sprouting again. Afterwards, 20 young monks left the Shaolin Temple. They were the people who failed to learn martial arts within a year. The instructors were quite happy that less than 1/3 of the monks compared to the past. The hall leader laughs happily, saying it is all thanks to Mu Jin. At this point, it would be foolish for anyone to refuse to acknowledge the boy's training methods. In fact, Hyun Sun went beyond acknowledging Mu Jin and is now a great supporter of him. Since he has seen great results from his training methods, there was hope in getting that exercise equipment in bulk. But even the great Shaolin Temple is limited in terms of budget when it comes to getting expensive items. Fortunately, it was not a totally hopeless case. Hyun Sung mumbled how he thought he had forgotten his greed for things in life after practicing Buddhism for around 50 years. Yet here he was, praying not for enlightenment but for bulk discounts. The official admission test is the last test of the new monks. It is used to choose the disciples that will be directly under the Shaolin Temple. If Mu Jin's training methods are proven with that test, then it will not be just a dream for the Arhat Hall to purchase all that training equipment. Half a year passed by. Mu Jin, who was in a growth spurt, had grown about 10 centimeters taller than a year ago. He was able to do a total of 400 kg across the 3 major exercises, with 12 sets as the standard. Although some might say that it is slow growth because a year and 9 months have passed, yet it is only 400 kg. However, you must know that Mu Jin isn't a physical trainer but a martial artist. If he grows his muscles too much, it would actually get in the way of doing certain movements in martial arts. That is why he only grew his muscles to the perfect size for martial arts, just to the level of celebrities being called, they have the perfect body on TV. Thanks to that, instead of becoming the body of trainer Choi Kang Hyuk, Mu Jin's body was slowly developing and transforming his muscles into the muscles of a martial artist. As Mu Jin continued his training consistently and passionately, Hyun Sung left the Arhat Hall and transferred to another place. He met with Shaolin Temple's abbot, Hyun Chun, and discussed the official admission tests that will be taking place 5 days from now. He guarantees Hyun Chun that the results of the official admission test will be unlike any before. Hyun Chun smiled, saying he will look forward to it. Time passed until the official admission test came. All the high-ranking monks from different places in the Shaolin Temple gathered in the Arhat Hall. Actually, there are not usually this many people gathered for the official admission test. But thanks to Mu Jin, there were a total of 49 new monks that made it to the official admission test. Excluding the outer sect disciples, there were a total of 42 new monks. That means they're all gathered here to witness this astonishing result. Of course, there were also some doubts. The Shaolin's outer court leader, Hai Gul, was also excited to see it. It is because Hyun Sung personally came to him yesterday and told him that this time's new monks were truly exceptional. He shows the instructor the new monks. The instructor was shocked to see how their bodies looked like they are at least second-class disciples. That was indeed the reason for monk Hyun Sung's confidence. The test soon commences. Mu Jin was excited as ever and led the young monks to the challenge, suggesting they all should have some fun. The test to join the Shaolin Temple officially is simple. The one who is taking the test will fight a second-class disciple. The instructor candidates of each hall that help to oversee the test will choose who shall become a third-class disciple in their hall. The second-class disciple will not fight at their full strength so that the one attempting the test can display his skills. Hyun Chun chuckles as he witnesses the immense strength of the young monks, realizing finally why Hyun Sung was so hyped earlier. It was soon Mu Yul's turn. Mu Jin reminds him to have as much fun as he can. Mu Yul agrees and makes his way to the battleground. The second-class disciple was shocked to see the boy has already mastered the 10th and 13th techniques of the chain punch. With this, he got an idea of how much martial arts he has learned. To his utter shock, the new monk was moving so nimbly. Even the bystanders were shocked to see the young monk. Hai Gul observes how Mu Yul's movements were quite flexible. His instincts were close to an animal's, and his body was also moving like one. He smiles and tells Bayab Hyun to take a good look at the monk. He declares that this child will become their disciple. He is certain that the child will be able to perfectly master their shawl in 5 punches. The match finally ends. Mu Jin is aware that the crazy flexibility of Mu Yul is definitely his talent. He was thinking about how he could bring out its full potential. For Mu Yul, who could not do anything because he was confused by the acupoints and flow. He had only focused on practicing the steps of the martial arts and how they were linked to each other without understanding the flow. So Mu Jin made sure the movements of the martial art and the flow of inner energy were engraved into his body through practice. If Mu Yul cannot understand it, then he just needs to make it easy for him to memorize it with his body. Hyun Chun was shocked and turned to the hall leader, asking how on earth he trained them to be this good. He cracks a joke, asking if he gave them the lesser revitalization pill without him knowing or something. Hyun Sung laughs, saying it is still too early to be surprised. It was now Mu Gung's turn to take the test. Mu Gung was pretty anxious about it. The hall buzzed, half in awe, half in disbelief, at the sight of the boy's giant frame. The second-class disciple opposite him looked like a farmer facing down a rampaging ox. Mu Gung has been training for 2 years for this moment, enduring all those harsh training sessions, and so he was determined not to lose. So when the test commences, he charges at the second-last disciple like a raging beast. Mu Jin is aware that in return for having a lot of strength due to his large body, his body is not very flexible. That is why he came up with the training schedule that focused on achieving a certain level of flexibility before training the boy's strength. Therefore, Mu Jin is confident that the current Mu Gung is a tank that can also be a damaged dealer. On the other hand, the second-last disciple administering his test was going through hell. He knows this is just the admission test, but if he does not use any inner energy without dealing with such power, he might just die if he gets hit. He decides to increase his inner energy. Despite that, he was having trouble keeping up with him. The instructors were also stunned, thinking, Mu Gung is the only one among the new monks to fight on par with a second-class discipline so far. It was at this moment that the successor of unmovable, invincible body art and divine palm strikes, Hai Dam, made his way forth. He seemed pretty satisfied by the ongoing fight. He says he can clearly see how hard the young monk worked to minimize any unnecessary movements. He says that with that attitude of his, Mu Gung might be able to walk down the right teachings of Shaolin. Mu Gung becomes excited as he sees everyone looking at him. He decides to look even better and stronger and flashier. That's when the second-class disciple's foot planted itself in his chest, sending him sprawling. The hall went silent. Somewhere, a cricket mocked him. Hai Dam's demeanor instantly changes, and his disappointment is evident when he says that the new monk needs some proper education. He decides to take him in and teach him personally. It was now Mu Kyung's turn. Although he has not fully overcome his past traumas yet, he needs to keep practicing to suppress the insanity within him so that he will not become the blood monk. Mu Jin knows that he is more dangerous than Mu Gung and Mu Yul. The boy keeps connecting different martial arts endlessly, making the second-to-last disciple astounded. It's like the boy has learned everything and is a true genius. Even Mu Jin, I was impressed by his moves. Things are progressing smoothly, except he was a little nervous at first. It has been a while since the fight started, and Mu Kyung has gotten really excited. Mu Jin just hopes he does not go crazy here. One of the leaders senses something sinister and stops the fight immediately. But Mu Kyung was too hyped up and did not stop. He feels really, really good and he continues fighting. Mu Jin notices the expression on his face and realizes that insanity has taken over him. His every strike screamed murder. The hall trembled. On the roof, a man lounged, watching with drunken amusement. He had judged each candidate, but Mu Kyung was delicious chaos. He claimed him in his mind before the boy even finished his rampage. Before Mu Kyung could land a killing blow, the drunken man vaulted into the fight, swaying like a reed in the wind. It was monk Hai Guan. Hai Dam was furious, and reprimands him for daring to drink liquor within the temple. He threatens to put him in the repentance cavern once again, but Hai Guan throws the bottle at him, making Hai Dam realize that it was just water. Hai Guan ignores him and addresses everyone present observing the test. He apologizes for interrupting abruptly, but declares his intentions to take this child under him. The other instructors did not dare to interject. They all were in agreement that Mu Kyung indeed has exceptional abilities. But based on the insanity he has shown, think that monk Hai Guan is the best person to deal with him. Hai Guan is also the leader of the demon extermination squad. They are the only ones within the Shaolin Temple that are excluded from the law of no killing and thus walked the path of the Asuras. It is a place where people gather to feel terrible and evil beings that are impossible to guide in order to protect the world. Hyung Chun also believes that this might be better for everyone. If that child learns under the monk who fights against demons, then he might be able to help control that insanity within Mu Kyung. Mu Kyung finally returns to reality and realizes what he did. He screams in shock, making Hai Guan laugh out loud. He continues laughing, remarking that it looks like he has taken in someone who is even crazier than he is. After announcing he'd taken Mu Kyung as he laughed boisterously, he jumped over the wall as if to say he wasn't interested in the rest of the test. Although there was some temporal confusion over what happened with Mu Kyung and Hai Guan, everyone soon gained back their composure and continued the admission test. That is, except for one person who is the second-class disciple that held the test throughout. He looked like a war veteran who had aged 10 years in a few hours. He had fought a slippery beast, a human mountain, and a psycho possessed by demons. What next? Next was Mu Jin. The second-class disciple stares at the boy, wondering if he is also the kind with the good physique and strength. He concludes that the boy does not look very special on the outside. Maybe this one won't try to kill me, he thought, foolishly. Hyun Sung points to Mujin and tells Hyun Chun that he is the strongest young monk around here. Hyun Chun questions why he is so confident in him. The call leader replies that Mu Jin is the one who will help Shaolin advance forward. Mu Jin has undergone some pretty brutal training for the past year. To Bayob Gang's surprise, he had even mastered the enlightenment cultivation technique. But he was looking forward to a way to accumulate energy even when he is breathing or sleeping. Bayob Gang then told him about the Iron Guard, but the boy did not seem much impressed, saying that this is just a third-rate martial art that mountain bandits learn. Bayob Gang explained that the Iron Guard was originally one of the famous basic martial arts of the Shaolin Temple. It means one's body could defend against techniques or weapons that are metal, but it certainly started to be used less. It is because it is not of much help with fighting martial masters that have achieved a high level of martial arts. That is because it is unable to defend against the sword aura and enhanced energy that the martial masters use. The outside thinks that the Iron Guard suddenly protects one's skin against external impact and trains one's skin to be as hard as iron. But that is only when you have not mastered it. The true Iron Guard also absorbs energy using their skin. Mu Jin was truly taken aback when he heard this. Bayob Gang further elaborated that the Iron Guard that exists in the outside world was taught by those who left Shaolin after being unable to master the true Iron Guard. Mu Jin concludes that if he succeeds at learning the true Iron Guard, he would be able to absorb energy at all times, even when he eats or sleeps. And if we also train in the energy accumulation training, that effect could multiply in folds. Bayob Gang further adds on that the original effect of the Iron Guard is to absorb energy into their skin and strengthen it. The absorbed energy can only make their skin tougher. At first, Mu Jin thinks it is useless. But he then realizes that combining the Iron Guard, the basic martial art of the Shaolin Temple, along with the modern physical training he has learned, can be put to good use. Mu Jin was indeed a genius when it came to learning martial arts quickly. In order to become a third-class disciple, one must learn at least 70 for each of the 3 basic martial arts of the Shaolin Temple within 1 year. He has already completely mastered all 3 basic martial arts. That means the level of his basic martial arts is higher than an official disciple in the Shaolin Temple. But since he learned martial arts much faster than others, the limiting factor was that he could not learn anything more. While he was able to compensate where he lacked with the physical training he has had, somehow he needed an original martial art that was exclusive to just him to prepare for what is coming ahead. Bayob Gang smiled as he saw him planning something quietly. It seems he has already thought of something. And so the others watched the boys exercise in weird ways once again. Mu Jin spent a lot of time hitting himself in different parts of the body, trying to make his skin used to the impact. He thought he might be able to find out how he can use the energy that he absorbed for something he can use freely. Now, standing in the arena, Mu Jin was ready to unveil his masterpiece, a martial art stitched from Shaolin tradition, modern training, and his own genius. Sometime before, Baeobjin brings an older monk on his back since he wanted to see this year's admission test. The old man was being apologetic, but Baeobjin assured him it's fine. They began to watch Mu Jin's test. The old monk was surprised to see Mu Jin's skill. He observes how the boy has a perfect sense of balance even though he is so young. Plus, the energy radiating from him was on an advanced level. The second-class disciple who was fighting against the boy was shocked to see him coming at him with an explosive charge. Mu Jin gathered strength in his lower body by combining the principles of 9 regal kicks and a swift whirlwind sweep. He then uses the 6th technique of the Guanyin strikes principle to strengthen the core of his body to amplify its power. Lastly, he used the 1st technique of the chain punch principle to give another boost to his shoulder. The combination of various martial arts principles he had practiced was called hybrid martial arts. He then excitedly decides to use the 2nd technique. On the other hand, the second-to-last disciple was quivering in pain. He could not believe how much of an impact got through, even though he used 10 years of energy to block it. To his shock, the 2nd attack was coming, even though he had no time to administer the 1st one. He tries to dodge the attack, but it was a trick. They continued to clash while the second-class disciple remained stunned. He doesn't think he can reserve any energy while fighting this boy. The old monk was truly appalled, unable to believe the boy is able to exert so much power with the little energy he has. He was simultaneously using punch, palm strike, kick, finger strike, punch, and strides. It is a fact that kick and strike techniques are just basic Shaolin martial arts that use one's leg, like the swift whirlwind sweep and 9 regal kicks. But on top of that, the boy was only using basic martial arts, yet he was overwhelming his opponent. And instead of learning the next step, he has created something totally new by combining what he has learned. It was without doubt the path of a grandmaster, the path that he walked. The old man directs Baeobjin to move closer to the training ground. Meanwhile, Mu Jin was having the time of his life. He has been training his body and his martial arts continuously for close to 2 years, but he never had an opportunity to use his strength properly during these past 2 years. Right now, being able to use his full strength without worrying about injuring his opponent seemed like true sparring to him. The nervousness that comes with fighting someone strong and the exhilaration of fighting with everything one has, it was awesome. In this sensation that feels like the world is moving slowly, Mu Jin's eyes could only see his opponent, but he is taken aback as he sees the opponent stepping back. Mu Jin's attention diverts as he hears noise behind him. He looks back and finally figures out why the second-class disciples suddenly quit. Everyone's eyes were on the old monk. Mu Jin was shocked, wondering why everyone has split up like the Red Sea for this person. Even the hall leader and Hyung Chun were truly stunned to see the Grandmaster Hyun Guang. They instantly jumped down, paying their utmost respect to the Grandmaster. Everyone began to chant his name with respect, making Mu Jin alert. He wondered who he was that seemed so influential that everyone paid their respect without any hesitation. The Grandmaster apologizes to Hyung Chun for disrupting the admission test. He begins to explain that he stepped forward because he has a question for this child. He asks Mu Jin to lower his robe, making him confused. Mu Jin was still not satisfied with his body yet, but he knew there was nothing to be embarrassed of. As he follows the order, everyone's eyes instantly turn toward him. It was the perfect body with the best body balance and muscles to learn exceptional martial arts. The Grand Master points out that he combines 6 basic martial arts as one in the fight earlier. He asked if the reason he trained his body was for the sake of using that martial art. Mu Jin, I was taken aback, wondering how the old monk realized that. Even the instructors were shocked, as the boy had used the same style of martial arts as the Grandmaster. Mu Jin scratches his head awkwardly, saying he is not that smart. That is why, instead of learning many martial arts and making it complicated, he tried to combine the martial arts that suit him the best and focused on them. That is the solution that he came up with after thinking for a year. It is because he is not the original protagonist of the novel. He wasn't confident that he could learn advanced martial arts like Mu Kyung, who was extremely smart. This is why he thought of the hybrid martial arts, which combines basic martial arts. While this is a really effective method, it will require one to move their energy around throughout their body at the perfect proportion so they can use their energy properly. And if various martial arts are used in combination, then their energies would be amplified, and it would be hard for their body to bear the pressure. So, Mu-jin trained his body to be able to withstand the power of the amplified energies. That meant as long as he has a strong body, then he would not have to think as hard over it. The Grandmaster observes him a bit more and says he must have also learned the Iron Guard. Mu-jin was truly surprised that the old monk was able to tell about this too. Her Grandmaster continues speaking about using her body trained to deep stream and the power of his skin to control the excessive power flow, which makes it seem that he has created his very own martial arts. Mu-jin couldn't believe that someone had figured him out this quickly, and he wondered just who the hell this old man was. The Grandmaster then tells Hyung-chun that he wants Mu-jin to be Baeobjin's disciple. This shocks the abbot, as this meant raising Mu-jin himself. Later in the hall leader's room, Mu-jin ponders deeply. He wonders if that old man was really that powerful despite having a damaged body. Just based on his outer appearance, his body is far from the usual Shaolin monk's body. Plus, he had never heard of his name in the author's novels. He gets cut off from his thoughts as Hyung-chun enters the room. He asks Mu-jin if he has heard who Grandmaster Hyun-gwang is. Mu-jin answers that he has not heard of him. The man says the reason he asked him to come here is not just because he has questions for him, but because there are some things that he needs to know as well.